All right. Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome back to another great video. In this video, we are going to mix a little bit of spirituality and science together. And the reason I am doing this is for the skeptics out there. Even myself, a year ago, before I started my spiritual journey, I was a huge skeptic, and if I could not get proof of something, get evidence, then I would never believe it. And now we live in such a wonderful era where there is proof of the afterlife. And there is just so much beauty out there. And this video is going to discuss about the brain. Because the brain has specific filters and networks that filter out spiritual thoughts. It wants to have thoughts that will help it survive. But we live in such times where survival is very easy, especially in America. If you live in third world countries where survival isn't as easy, then I'm very sorry for that, and I hope your situation gets better. Well, it will only get better with a lot of hard work, and that is an important thing to do having a human experience. Work hard and get to somewhere where you can just relax and have a peak human experience. But with all that said, let's get into this video. So, have you ever had a day that was going so well you wish it would never go away? Maybe zero traffic and you hit all the green lights, or simply no annoying people bothered you today. Plenty of days happen like that. But with every day, what goes up must come down. Let's jump over to the opposite spectrum. Having an awful day, tons of traffic, other drivers cutting you off, they preferably will not use their signal in their vehicle, or possibly an annoying coworker that thinks you're his friend. This list can go on and on because more things make you as a human angry than happy. Sometimes this anger can feel like it overtakes your whole body, like hijacking your brain, and you just don't feel the same anymore. You feel like a totally different person. But, like the wise Buddha said, anger is like a poison that you drink and expect the other person to die. A good realization is that this anger you feel is a chemical release in your Homo sapien brain. The culprits at play are called epinephrine and norepinephrine. You can research more in depth about these chemicals. But when you start getting angry, they get released. Same for happy chemicals. This is why you don't stay happy forever with materialistic objects, at least. Because there is a limited supply of these chemicals, and your brain just does not have the capacity to keep producing these chemicals to stay in such a state. The best state of mind to have is nirvana, which is neither angry nor happy, right in the middle, with complete peace within yourself. You can view this complete peace as a type of happiness. Now, as a practice in your day-to-day life, just be more conscious of what angers you. Notice the subconscious reaction and put it into your consciousness. And realize it is just a chemical your brain releases, and you shouldn't let it turn you into an animal. Even for happy things, realize what is making you happy. If it is things like scrolling endlessly on social media, drinking non-functional liquids, for example, soda, doing drugs, even eating garbage processed food, then that is fake happiness. The reason I say that is fake happiness is because it is what your brain craves. So it will try its hardest. It will start producing happy chemicals and make you feel like a fiend. You will fiend for these disgusting things, and once you achieve it, you'll feel pretty good. But in the long run, it makes you feel miserable. Even like shopping for materialistic things, buying a car. If you notice some BMW, Mercedes drivers on the road, do most of them look happy to you? No. They most of the time they look fairly miserable because they were under an illusion thinking, "Oh, once I buy this car, everything will be better." As they are coming to that date of purchase, their brain is releasing more and more happy chemicals to achieve that purchase. And once they get the car, they'll feel exhilarated, just beyond happy for maybe 1 to 3 days. And then that high, pretty much, that your brain produces with these chemicals wears off, and they're back to being miserable. And they just have no idea why. That they need to look within to find true happiness or nirvana. Now, these chemicals are keeping humans in the dark ages for way too long. People don't understand this enough. Now, just close your eyes, sit up comfortably, and observe the chaos of the mind. Don't interact with your thoughts, just let them be. This might be a difficult skill, to not interact with your thoughts, especially when you are interacting with them constantly. But between the thoughts, there is empty space. But it's not just empty space, it is pure awareness. That pure awareness is what you want to achieve. It's the best state. Now, the more you practice in meditation, you can take that awareness and kind of fly with it like a bird. And you can just look at your thoughts and they'll just think themselves through, and then you can make a decision on what to do with it. But most people, in the moment of thinking, they act, and they can do sometimes smart things and most of the times really dumb things. Like, for example, when I witnessed a fight happen in school, someone would say a bunch of swear words to another person, they would respond back with a bunch of swear words, they would keep the argument going until one person throws a punch, then the other one throws a punch, and then they just have a full-on brawl. That is just a very Homo sapien thing to do, because what animals have, they have a reaction to something, they have a stimulus. So that stimulus would be if there's another animal that's threatening them, and that stimulus goes straight to reaction. But see, animals don't have enough consciousness like us, so they don't have a choice. They go right to reaction. But we as humans, we are a lot more conscious, and we have the power to look in between those two. The person that can look in between stimulus and reaction is the more intelligent person, the one that does not pick unnecessary fights. Now, let's talk more about emotions. Emotions and thoughts are not as tied together as you were led to believe. For example, your brain releases angry chemicals and your thoughts start becoming angrier, and vice versa for all the emotions. From that example, you might think that yes, emotions and the mind are linked together, but it only seems like they are with the help of the ego, also known as the default mode network. You might think to yourself, what is this default mode network? It is a complex brain network that has evolved to make the creature have a sense of self. Like when a dog pisses on a tree to assert dominance, that is its ego in action. Now, the ego, yes, it produces a sense of self, but it also wants to feel superior to everyone. It wants to have power, it wants to have money, it wants to see itself better than everyone, and it likes asserting dominance. Because the ego has more access to higher consciousness in the human brain, it can do some pretty evil things. The dog doesn't have as much consciousness, so the most it can do is piss on a tree to assert dominance, fight another dog for territory. But it's just a dog. You can't blame it. Now, for us humans, let's say when you see someone ugly or fat, and you think to yourself, wow, what an ugly person, or just overall anything along the lines of being judgmental, is your ego. The ego is possible of producing unconscious thoughts. It'll convince you that it is conscious, but all it is just a brain network. Same like our brainstem that controls our breathing and other vital functions of the body. The default mode network controls our ego. Now, depending on how powerful your ego is, depends on how strongly you get affected by emotions. If you have a very strong sense of self and get angry, you will get a lot angrier and have no consciousness to stop it. Being controlled by your own brain is not fun, especially when you aren't aware of it. Now, modern Western scientists, they have come to the conclusion that consciousness forms in the brain, and that's the end of that discussion. But they have no proof at all that consciousness originates in the brain. In fact, with new research that has been proven, it seems like our brain is a consciousness receiver of sorts. For how a radio picks up a specific frequency to play a certain station, if that radio were to pick up all the frequencies on the planet, it would sound awful, and nothing useful would be said. Now let's scale that all the way down to the quantum level. Now this is a little off topic, but for reference, the device you are using to read this has billions of atoms holding it together. Obviously, you can't see them with your human eyes, but they are there. Now, millions of times smaller than the atoms, are the subatomic atoms, which hold together that one atom. And millions of times smaller than the subatomic atom is the quantum realm, which consists of particles and waves. This quantum space is a newer discovery by us and is still being researched properly, but who knows, there might be a land even smaller than the quantum, but still yet to be discovered with our current technology. Now back to consciousness. Consciousness is the store of information on a quantum level. The most simple basic explanation there can be of consciousness. Very simple. It is just the store of information. And consciousness can be used the same as soul. Our soul is just an energy that has information stored in it. Information about what you as an individual are. Same as how radio frequencies store information, but on a physical plane that can be measured by physical tools. And the billions and billions of neurons connected in our brain allow consciousness to be received and give us our human-like consciousness. An animal with fewer neurons than a human will have that specific animal's consciousness. Also, intelligence, I see, is the same as consciousness. Just because nobody is smarter or dumber than anyone, unless, of course, they have a physical disease or mental, or I wouldn't even say mental, but a physical illness inside their brain, like people with Down syndrome, autism. It's a very unfortunate thing to have, so their intelligence is lacking in that. But if your brain is totally healthy, you are not smarter or dumber than anyone. You just have your specific set of information that your brain has ingested, and that's what you know. Someone that has different information stored in their consciousness will have that. But it's all just one intelligence, it's all just one consciousness. Now, we as humans have a lot of consciousness because we have bigger brains, hence giving us more intelligent capabilities. Now, let's use a cat for example, has a lot less consciousness, and that would relate having a lot less intelligence. So it just can't be as conscious as us. The best prediction you can make for what an animal thinks is just sounds. A cat's mind is just a bunch of wild animal sounds, but its consciousness and intelligence doesn't understand that it is a thought. It just sees that as a normal part of life and moves on with more important things like surviving. Now that you have a little better understanding of consciousness and ego, let's move on to how they affected our world. So you know from my other ego posts that the ego wants to feel on top and have power over people. So someone that is unconscious of this ego and manages to fall in power will do many awful things. Hitler and Stalin, two great examples of unconscious Homo sapiens that fell in power and really screwed up humanity. All of humanity's wars have been motivated by the ego. Some powerful individual wants this or that and will kill other nations to get what they want. But do they truly need it? Or is it just the ego trying to feel happy? Now, is your ego creating a thought like this? This is impossible. Consciousness originates from the brain and can't be any way different. Its evolutionary purpose is to ground itself in this human experience and keep its human from not breaking out of the simulation. Now, this will be very difficult for you to accept because you are slowly breaking down a physical network inside your brain. It's not going to happen automatically, but just slowly and slowly, day by day, becoming conscious of this, it'll get better. And this is one of the only ways, at least that I can think of, to bring heaven on earth. So we can all love each other as nations, no matter what problems we may have, gender inequalities, skin color, wars, killing each other. That all mostly comes from the ego, because it sees itself as separate and it wants to be better than other egos. Now, the ego does not want you to break its network, and it wants you to believe you are your human body, but you are not your body. Now, here is two stories that these two stories are two out of thousands, that indicate consciousness is outside the brain. This story is about two identical twins that died at an early age. Very tragic for the parents. They lived in shock for a long time, but then decided to try making children again, but this time in a different city, far away from where the first twins died. On some miracle, they had twins again. These twins grew up with a normal life, going to school, making friends, all that fun stuff. But ever since they were born, they had a crippling fear of cars. The parents never understood why they both were so afraid of cars, since they've never been in a crash or been close to being hit by one. So, some time passed. The parents decided to go on a trip to their old town and show it to their twins. As they were driving down to the city, the twins were pointing at old structures and correctly saying the name of the structure without ever seeing those structures in their existence. And the parents never brought them up because it was too sad to think about where the first twins passed away. Now, how could little children know the exact name of their structures? Because their higher consciousness, also known as soul, remembered it from the first time it was on this planet before getting killed by a car. This story alone can send you down a tunnel of reincarnation stories. There's so much, it's unbelievable. Now, one more story is of an older gentleman that had awful dementia. It got so bad to a point that he forgot who he was, who his family was, and what anything was. His dementia was eating him from the inside, and doctors could do nothing about it. His family was saying graces and preparing for his departure when suddenly he rose up and looked at his family and said all of their names, and then he proceeded to have a lively conversation with them, just as he was 30 years of age. And then he told them everything will be okay, and he passed away. How could someone that was labeled by doctors a vegetable, waiting to pass away, suddenly rise up and have a lucid conversation? It's the brain's last resort to help out that family and try to reassure them that everything will be okay. Now, I will have a link down below in this video. It is about Dr. Bruce Greyson. Super intelligent doctor that gives many great points on how consciousness is outside the brain. With that proof, it basically proves to us the existence of the soul. If the soul moves on after death and consciousness moves on after death, then they should be the same thing. Now, remember this. Your ego will try to fight this and give you convincing points that yes, I am the human body, but that is why it's there in the first place. It's just an evolutionary feature to keep us grounded and to survive. But of course, survival is fairly easy in the modern day. It's gonna say many things to throw you off, and the human ego can only be gone fully once your consciousness vehicle passes away. That also can be translated to as death. Once you die, then the human ego dies. But if you are not spiritual at all for your whole life, then that human ego will have such a grip on your soul that you will still be a narcissistic soul in the afterlife, and you will go to a heaven that also has these narcissistic souls. And it's pretty much a game of sorts to finally realize this, and then you can move into higher spiritual dimensions and be with souls that have realized the truth and start evolving further and further. Now, if we humans, as a collective, understood we are walking vehicles of consciousness instead of our miserable human selves, we could solve many things. Instead of wars and fighting, we could all work together and focus more on science and innovation instead of people being stuck in dead end jobs, working their entire lives and getting nothing from the human experience. That, to me, is hell. People are scared that they will go to hell, but they're living in hell right now. And it really is time to change this. Of course, you can always message me on Instagram. It's at divine_monkey_. I am always down to answer anyone's questions. I love answering questions to help people out because this can be a little bit confusing, but it is much necessary to bring heaven on earth. Goodbye, stay safe, and remember, the universe and I love you.